Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling like you missed something crucial? Like there was an entire layer of communication happening beneath the words that you just couldn't quite grasp? Or perhaps you've watched someone effortlessly navigate a tense discussion, turning potential conflict into collaboration, and wondered what invisible force they were wielding. That force, that seemingly magical ability to read the room, to understand what's truly being said behind the words, and to respond in ways that create connection rather than division, is emotional intelligence. And today, we're going to unlock every secret of this profound skill so you can dominate every conversation you enter. Let's start with a fundamental truth that most people never fully grasp. Conversations are never just about the words being spoken. Think about that for a moment. When someone says, "I'm fine," those two simple words can carry 1,000 different meanings depending on the tone, the context, the body language, and the emotional undercurrent flowing beneath them. The person with high emotional intelligence doesn't just hear, "I'm fine." They perceive the tremor in the voice, notice the forced smile, register the crossed arms, and understand that "I'm fine" actually means "I'm struggling, but I don't feel safe enough to tell you." This is where true conversational mastery begins, in the recognition that every human interaction operates on multiple frequencies simultaneously. There's the surface level, the explicit content, the literal words. But beneath that lies an entire ocean of emotional data, unspoken needs, hidden fears, unconscious desires, and complex feelings that shape the real message being transmitted. Most people spend their entire lives swimming only on the surface, completely unaware of the depths below. But once you develop the ability to dive deep, to navigate those hidden currents with skill and precision, you gain an almost unfair advantage in every human interaction. The foundation of emotional intelligence in conversation rests on 4 pillars, and understanding these pillars is absolutely critical before we move into the tactical applications. The first pillar is self-awareness. This is your ability to recognize and understand your own emotions in real time, to catch yourself feeling defensive before you say something you'll regret, to notice your excitement potentially causing you to dominate the conversation, to recognize your anxiety manifesting as aggression. Without this foundational awareness of your internal state, you're essentially trying to drive a car blindfolded. You might think you're in control, but you're actually being controlled by forces you can't even see. The second pillar is self-regulation. This is where the real power emerges. It's not enough to simply notice that you're feeling triggered, defensive, angry, or insecure. The question is, can you feel those emotions without becoming them? Can you experience anger without letting it hijack your words? Can you feel the urge to interrupt without actually interrupting? Can you sit with the discomfort of silence without rushing to fill it? Self-regulation is the gap between stimulus and response, and in that gap lies your freedom and your power. Most people are slaves to their immediate emotional reactions. They feel something and immediately express it, often in ways that sabotage their own interests. The emotionally intelligent person creates space between feeling and action, and in that space, they choose their response strategically. The third pillar is social awareness. This is your ability to accurately read other people's emotional states, to sense the mood in the room, to pick up on subtle cues that reveal what someone is really thinking or feeling. It's the skill that allows you to notice when someone's words say yes, but their energy says no. It's what enables you to detect discomfort, enthusiasm, skepticism, or openness in others before they explicitly voice it. Social awareness transforms you from someone who merely speaks to someone who truly communicates, because you're not just broadcasting your message into the void, you're constantly calibrating based on how it's being received.
The fourth pillar is relationship management. This is the culmination of the other 3 pillars, the practical application where awareness transforms into influence. It's your ability to use emotional data to navigate complex social dynamics, to diffuse tension, to inspire collaboration, to persuade ethically, and to create genuine connection. This is where emotional intelligence becomes conversational dominance. not through force or manipulation, but through a sophisticated understanding of human psychology and interpersonal dynamics. Now, let's get tactical. Let's talk about how you actually apply these principles in real conversations to achieve outcomes that seem almost magical to those who don't understand what you're doing. The first technique is something I call emotional mirroring with strategic calibration. When you enter a conversation, especially with someone new or in a situation with some tension, most people make one of two mistakes. They either completely ignore the other person's emotional state and barrel ahead with their agenda, or they mirror too obviously and come across as fake or manipulative. The sophisticated approach is to first accurately identify the other person's emotional state, then calibrate your energy to match it initially before gradually leading them to the state you want to create. Let me give you a concrete example. Imagine you're walking into a meeting with a colleague who's clearly agitated. Their shoulders are tense, they're speaking quickly, their energy is scattered. The amateur approach would be to either ignore this entirely and launch into your agenda with cheerful enthusiasm, creating immediate disconnect, or to match their agitation exactly, which just amplifies the negative energy. The emotionally intelligent approach is to initially meet them at about 70% of their current energy level. You speak a bit more quickly than you normally would, you acknowledge the pace of the situation, you validate that there's a lot happening. This creates an initial sense of being understood, of being met where they are. But then, gradually, almost imperceptibly, you begin to slow down your speech, you lower your vocal tone slightly, you introduce pauses. If you've built enough rapport through that initial matching, they'll unconsciously begin to follow your lead, and you'll have successfully de-escalated the situation without ever explicitly saying, "calm down," which almost never works. The second technique is mastering the art of the strategic pause. In our hyper-connected, constantly stimulated world, people have lost their tolerance for silence. They experience it as awkward, uncomfortable, something to be filled immediately with words, any words. But silence is one of the most powerful tools in conversational dominance. When you ask someone a question and they give you a surface-level answer, the amateur immediately responds or asks another question. The master simply waits. They hold eye contact, they maintain an open and receptive posture, they give a small nod that says, "I'm listening, continue." And what happens? About 70% of the time, the other person will continue talking, and this second or third layer of response is almost always where the real truth lives, where the actual concern emerges, where the deeper motivation reveals itself. The strategic pause works because it creates productive discomfort. Most people are so conditioned to fill silence that when you refuse to do so, they'll fill it themselves, and in filling it, they'll often reveal far more than they initially intended. This isn't manipulation, it's creating space for truth. You're not tricking people into revealing themselves, you're simply not colluding with their habit of staying on the surface. But here's the crucial nuance. Your energy during the pause matters enormously. If your silence feels judgmental, aggressive, or impatient, it will shut people down. If your silence feels receptive, curious, and genuinely interested, it will open them up. This is where your internal state, that first pillar of self-awareness, becomes externally visible. You can't fake genuine interest. People can sense it.
The third technique is precision in emotional labeling. When someone is experiencing an emotion, especially a difficult one, there's tremendous power in accurately naming it. But most people either ignore emotions entirely, treating them as irrelevant to the real conversation, or they label them incorrectly, which actually creates more confusion and disconnect. The emotionally intelligent person develops a sophisticated emotional vocabulary and uses it strategically. For example, someone comes to you and they're clearly upset, and most people would say something like, "You seem upset,"
or "Are you okay?" These aren't wrong, but they're imprecise, and imprecision in emotional labeling misses an opportunity for deep connection. The person isn't just upset. Are they frustrated because their expectations weren't met? Are they disappointed because someone they trusted let them down? Are they anxious because they're facing uncertainty? Are they feeling disrespected because their boundaries were violated? Each of these emotional states requires a different approach, a different conversation. When you can accurately identify and label the specific emotion, something remarkable happens. The person feels truly seen, truly understood. And that feeling of being understood is one of the most powerful experiences in human psychology. It immediately de-escalates defensiveness, opens up authentic dialogue, and creates trust. But here's the advanced move. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is label an emotion that someone is feeling but hasn't consciously recognized yet. Imagine someone is explaining a situation, and they're animated and talking quickly about all the details, but there's an underlying current you're picking up on. You might say something like, "It sounds like beneath the frustration about how this unfolded, there might be some disappointment that it happened at all, like maybe you expected better." If you're accurate, you'll often see visible relief wash over them. It's as if you've given them permission to feel something they were suppressing or hadn't quite identified. This is conversational mastery at the highest level. The fourth technique is strategic vulnerability. This might seem counterintuitive when we're talking about dominating conversations, but here's the paradox. The person who is willing to be strategically vulnerable is often the most powerful person in the room. When you share something authentic, when you admit uncertainty or acknowledge a mistake or reveal a genuine feeling, you're doing something that most people are terrified to do. And in doing that thing that terrifies others, you demonstrate confidence and strength. More importantly, vulnerability is reciprocal. When you open up, you create psychological safety for others to do the same. And once mutual vulnerability is established, you're no longer having a surface-level exchange. You're having a real conversation. And real conversations are where genuine influence happens. The key word here is strategic. This doesn't mean emotional dumping. It doesn't mean making yourself the center of every conversation or using others as unpaid therapists. Strategic vulnerability means sharing something genuine that serves the relationship and the conversation. It means going first in revealing something that creates connection, that demonstrates you're human, that signals you're safe to open up to. The timing, the dosage, and the relevance all matter. A small personal revelation at the right moment can completely transform the dynamic of a conversation, breaking down walls and creating instant rapport. The fifth technique is mastering the transition from content to emotion and back again. Many conversations get stuck in one mode. Either people stay entirely in the land of facts, data, and logistics, avoiding anything that feels emotional because they think it's unprofessional or weak, or they get completely consumed by emotions, circling around feelings without ever moving toward practical solutions. The person with high emotional intelligence can dance between these two modes fluidly.
They recognize when a conversation that's been focused on content needs an emotional acknowledgement. Someone is talking about a project that's behind schedule, listing all the rational reasons why, and the emotionally intelligent person recognizes that beneath the rational explanation is anxiety about being judged or fear of failure. They might say something like, "I'm hearing all the legitimate challenges that have created this situation, and I'm also sensing this might be stressful. Is that fair?" That simple acknowledgement of the emotional reality, even just for a moment, can completely change the conversation. The person feels seen, the tension releases slightly, and then you can more productively move back to problem solving. Conversely, sometimes conversations get stuck in emotional processing, and while emotions absolutely need to be acknowledged and validated, at some point, the conversation needs to move toward action and resolution. The skilled practitioner can validate the emotion while gently directing toward productive next steps. I completely understand this feels overwhelming right now, and those feelings are totally valid. When you feel ready, I'd like to talk about what might help change the situation. Is now okay, or would you prefer a bit more time?
The sixth technique is the art of the reframe. How we frame a situation completely determines how we experience it and how we talk about it. The same set of facts can be framed as a disaster or as a learning opportunity, as a personal attack or as a miscommunication, as an ending or as a new beginning. The emotionally intelligent person understands that they have the power to influence how situations are framed, and in doing so, they shape the entire trajectory of the conversation and the subsequent actions. This isn't toxic positivity or denying reality, it's choosing where to direct attention and how to construct meaning. When someone comes to you catastrophizing, seeing only the negative, fixated on what went wrong, you don't invalidate their perspective, but you do offer an alternative frame. Yes, this client decided not to move forward, and that's disappointing. I'm also thinking about what we learned about our pitch process that we can improve for the next one. You're not denying the disappointment, but you're introducing a frame that includes learning and growth, and that frame opens up completely different possibilities for the conversation. The seventh technique, and this is where many people struggle, is maintaining your center in the face of manipulation or emotional escalation. Not everyone you encounter will be operating in good faith. Some people will try to provoke you, to throw you off balance, to manipulate you emotionally to get what they want. The amateur either takes the bait, getting angry or defensive and losing all strategic control, or they shut down completely, becoming cold and disconnected. The master recognizes the attempt for what it is, refuses to be emotionally hijacked, and responds from a place of centered calm. When someone raises their voice, you lower yours. When someone tries to provoke you with an insult or accusation, you pause, take a breath, and respond to the concern beneath the attack rather than to the attack itself. I see you're really frustrated, and I want to understand what's driving that. Can you help me understand what you need right now? This response does something powerful. It doesn't reward the bad behavior by getting reactive, but it also doesn't punish the person by shutting down. It stays engaged while maintaining boundaries, and it redirects the conversation towards something productive. This requires serious self-regulation, that second pillar we discussed. You have to be able to feel the surge of anger or defensiveness, to notice the impulse to strike back, and to consciously choose a different path. This is emotional intelligence as a superpower. While the other person is being controlled by their emotions, you're using yours as information and choosing your response strategically.
The eighth technique is reading and responding to micro-expressions and body language. The research is clear. The majority of communication is non-verbal. The words matter, but the way those words are delivered, the facial expressions that accompany them, the posture, the gestures, the tone, these elements often communicate more truth than the actual content. Developing the ability to read these cues accurately is like gaining access to a secret channel that most people don't even know exists. Someone says they're excited about an idea, but their arms are crossed, their face is tight, and their tone is flat. The words say yes, but everything else says no. Someone says they're fine with the decision, but they break eye contact, their shoulders slump, and they sigh quietly. Someone says they understand, but they're nodding too quickly, not asking any questions, and their eyes are distant. These incongruities between verbal and nonverbal communication are where the truth lives, and the person who can spot them has a massive advantage. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Once you can read these cues, you can also use your own body language strategically to influence the emotional tone of a conversation. When you want to create openness and trust, you face the person directly, maintain appropriate eye contact, keep an open posture, lean in slightly, and use head nods to signal you're tracking with them. When you need to establish authority or boundaries, you can take up more space, slow down your movements, lower your vocal tone, and reduce your facial expressiveness. You're not being fake, you're consciously choosing how to show up based on what the situation requires.
The ninth technique is the strategic use of questions. Most people ask questions poorly. They ask leading questions that reveal their own agenda, or they ask yes-no questions that shut down dialogue, or they ask multiple questions at once that confuse the conversation. The emotionally intelligent person uses questions as surgical instruments, precisely designed to open up the exact areas they want to explore. Open-ended questions that begin with what or how are your primary tools. What's most important to you about this? How did that impact you? What would success look like? These questions invite elaboration, exploration, and genuine thinking. But beyond the structure of the question, it's the genuine curiosity behind it that matters. People can sense when a question is authentic versus when it's just a technique being deployed. The most powerful questions emerge from real interest in understanding the other person's perspective, experience, and truth. There's also the technique of asking questions that direct attention in useful ways. What's one thing that went well? Directs attention toward the positive. What's been the hardest part of this? Directs attention toward challenges and creates space for vulnerability. What would you need to feel differently about this? Directs attention toward potential solutions and agency. Every question shapes where the conversation goes next, and the skilled practitioner uses this deliberately. The 10th technique is managing your own emotional triggers. Everyone has them, those specific phrases, situations, tones, or behaviors that immediately activate defensiveness, shame, anger, or anxiety. Maybe it's when someone questions your competence, or when you feel dismissed, or when someone raises their voice, or when you sense judgment. These triggers are your vulnerability points, the places where you're most likely to lose your center and react rather than respond. The work of emotional intelligence requires that you identify your triggers clearly and that you develop strategies for managing them when they get activated. This might mean having a centering phrase you use internally, taking a tactical bathroom break in heated conversations, practicing specific breathing techniques, or simply knowing that when you feel that particular sensation in your chest, that's your cue to slow down and be extra intentional. You cannot dominate conversations if you're constantly being hijacked by your own unmanaged emotional reactions. The person who knows their triggers and has strategies for working with them is operating at a completely different level than the person who is at the mercy of whatever anyone else says or does.
The 11th technique is creating and maintaining rapport even across disagreement. One of the most common misconceptions is that dominating a conversation means winning an argument or forcing your perspective. Actually, true conversational mastery often means being able to disagree completely with someone while maintaining connection and mutual respect. This is an advanced skill, and it's increasingly rare in our polarized world. The key is separating the person from their position. You can think someone's idea is terrible while still respecting them as a person. You can completely disagree with someone's perspective while remaining curious about how they arrived at it. The language you use here is critical. Instead of, "You're wrong about this," try, "I see this differently and I'm curious about your reasoning." Instead of, "That's a terrible idea," try, "I have some concerns about that approach. Can I share them?" You're still being direct and honest about your disagreement, but you're doing it in a way that maintains the relationship. There's also the technique of finding the kernel of truth, or the valid concern beneath a position you disagree with. Someone might be advocating for something you think is completely wrong, but if you listen carefully, there's almost always some legitimate concern or value driving their position. If you can identify and acknowledge that, you create a bridge. I understand you're concerned about speed, and that's completely legitimate. Where I differ is on whether this particular approach actually gets us there faster. Now you're not opponents, you're two people with a shared concern exploring different paths forward.
The 12th technique is the strategic use of storytelling. Facts tell, stories sell. Data informs, narratives transform. When you want to truly influence someone, when you want your message to stick, when you want to create emotional resonance, stories are your most powerful tool. The human brain is literally wired for narrative. We remember stories far better than we remember abstract principles or data points. But not all stories work equally well. The most powerful stories in conversation are personal, relevant, and concise. They illustrate the point you're making without overtaking the entire conversation. They invite identification rather than creating distance. When someone is struggling with a decision, sharing a brief story about a similar situation you've faced and what you learned from it can be far more influential than giving advice. When you're trying to convey why something matters, a short narrative that brings the stakes to life emotionally will land more deeply than a logical argument. The structure matters too. The most effective conversational stories have a simple arc. Here's the situation, here's the challenge or conflict, here's what happened, here's what I learned or what changed. Keep it tight, make it relevant, and then explicitly connect it back to the current conversation. That experience taught me the importance of asking directly rather than assuming, which is why I'm wondering if we should have that conversation with the client before moving forward. The 13th technique is recognizing and adapting to different communication styles. Not everyone processes information the same way. Some people are highly analytical and want data, logic, and systematic thinking. Others are relationship-oriented and need to feel connection before they can engage with content. Some are big-picture thinkers who get impatient with details, while others need specifics before they can commit to anything. The emotionally intelligent person doesn't assume everyone communicates like they do. They develop flexibility, the ability to style shift based on who they're talking to. This requires both observation and adaptation. You watch how someone naturally communicates. Do they jump straight to the bottom line, or do they need context? Do they express feelings openly, or do they stay in logic? Do they think out loud, or do they need processing time? Once you identify their natural style, you can adjust your approach to match it, at least initially, which creates ease and reduces friction. Over time, you can gradually introduce your own style, but starting with theirs demonstrates respect and creates receptivity. The 14th technique is the power of validation without agreement. This is one of the most misunderstood aspects of emotional intelligence. Many people think that validating someone means agreeing with them, so they either refuse to validate perspectives they disagree with, creating unnecessary conflict, or they falsely agree, creating confusion. The truth is, you can validate someone's experience or feelings while completely disagreeing with their conclusions or actions. Validation simply means acknowledging that from their perspective, with their information and their experience, their reaction makes sense. I can see why you would feel that way given what you experienced is validation. It doesn't mean you would feel that way, or that you think their feeling is correct, or that you agree with what they're planning to do about it. It just means you understand the connection between their experience and their reaction. This simple act of validation is incredibly disarming and creates openness. People stop defending themselves when they feel understood, and once defensiveness drops, productive conversation becomes possible. The 15th technique is knowing when to walk away. Conversational dominance doesn't mean engaging with every conversation or trying to win every exchange. Sometimes the most emotionally intelligent move is recognizing that a particular conversation at this particular moment with this particular person in this particular state is not going to be productive. Maybe emotions are too high. Maybe trust hasn't been established. Maybe the other person is operating in bad faith. Maybe you don't have the capacity to show up well right now. The ability to recognize this and to disengage gracefully is a sign of strength, not weakness. It might sound like, I want to have this conversation, and I don't think we're in a place right now where we can do it productively. Can we come back to this tomorrow? Or, I'm noticing I'm getting reactive and I don't want to say things I'll regret. I need a break. This is self-awareness and self-regulation in action. You're recognizing the limits of what's possible in the moment and choosing to preserve the relationship and your own integrity rather than forcing something that isn't working. Now let's talk about the deeper psychology behind all of this, because understanding the why beneath the how makes everything more powerful. At the core of emotional intelligence in conversation is a profound recognition. Every human being has the same fundamental needs. We all need to feel seen, heard, understood, and valued. We all want to matter, to have impact, to be respected. We all carry fears of rejection, judgment, and inadequacy. We all long for connection, belonging, and significance. When you're in a conversation, you're not just exchanging information, you're navigating a complex psychological landscape where these needs and fears are always present, always influencing what's being said and how it's being received. The person who understands this doesn't just listen to words, they listen for the needs beneath the words. They don't just respond to surface content, they address the deeper human concerns. Someone is angry about a missed deadline. On the surface, it's about the deadline. But beneath that, it might be fear that they'll be blamed, or anxiety about losing control, or frustration at not being respected. If you only address the surface, you'll miss the opportunity to actually resolve the deeper issue. The emotionally intelligent approach might be, I take responsibility for missing that deadline, and I want you to know I understand this impacts you and your work. Can we talk about how to prevent this going forward and what would help restore your confidence in my follow-through? You've addressed the practical concern, but you've also spoken to the deeper needs for respect, reliability, and consideration.
This brings us to a critical distinction. There's a difference between emotional intelligence and emotional manipulation. Both involve understanding and influencing emotions, but the intention and the ethics are completely different. Emotional manipulation seeks to serve only your interests, often at the expense of the other person. It uses emotional understanding as a weapon to get what you want regardless of impact. Emotional intelligence, properly understood, seeks mutual benefit. It uses emotional understanding to create connection, to solve problems, to reduce suffering, to enable collaboration. When we talk about dominating conversations through emotional intelligence, we're not talking about controlling or manipulating people. We're talking about being so skilled in navigating emotional and interpersonal dynamics that you can consistently guide conversations toward productive outcomes, create genuine connection, diffuse conflict, inspire others, and influence decisions. That's dominance through mastery, not through force. There's also the question of authenticity that many people struggle with. Does developing these skills make you fake? Are you being manipulative if you're consciously using techniques? The answer depends entirely on your foundation. If your techniques are built on genuine care, real curiosity, authentic respect, and true desire for mutual benefit, then you're not being fake. You're being skillfully authentic. You're learning to communicate your genuine intentions more effectively. You're removing the barriers that prevent real connection. You're getting better at expressing what you actually think and feel in ways that land well. But if your techniques are built on hidden agendas, self-serving manipulation, and lack of genuine regard for others, then yes, you're being manipulative, and people will eventually sense it. There's something in human psychology that can detect inauthenticity, even if we can't always articulate what feels off. The techniques we've discussed are powerful, but they're only as ethical as the intentions behind them. Let's address one more critical element, the role of boundaries in emotionally intelligent conversation. Many people misunderstand emotional intelligence as infinite flexibility, endless accommodation, and constant emotional availability. That's not intelligence, that's actually a lack of boundaries, and it leads to resentment, burnout, and ultimately ineffective communication. True emotional intelligence includes the ability to set and maintain clear boundaries. It means being able to say no firmly but kindly.
It means not taking responsibility for other people's emotions while still having empathy for them. It means recognizing when someone is asking too much and being willing to disappoint them rather than violate your own limits. It means being able to name and address boundary violations directly. This might sound like, "I care about you and I'm not available for a call right now. Can we talk tomorrow?" Or, "I understand this is frustrating for you and I'm not willing to be spoken to that way. I need you to lower your voice or we'll need to pause this conversation." You're maintaining connection while also maintaining your boundaries, and that combination is the hallmark of sophisticated emotional intelligence. The journey of developing emotional intelligence for conversational mastery is ongoing. It's not a destination you reach, it's a practice you develop over years. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to refine your skills, to experiment with new approaches, to learn from what works and what doesn't. You'll make mistakes. You'll misread situations. You'll say the wrong thing. That's not failure. That's the learning process. The key is developing what's sometimes called the observer self, the part of you that can watch yourself in conversations, that can notice patterns in your reactions, that can catch you falling into old habits and offer new choices. This metacognitive ability, this capacity to observe yourself while you're engaging, is what allows for continuous improvement. Pay attention to what happens after conversations. Do people leave feeling energized or drained? Do they seek you out for difficult conversations or avoid them? Do you typically feel good about how you showed up, or do you walk away with regrets? These patterns tell you a lot about where you're strong and where you need to develop.
Seek feedback from people you trust. Ask them about your conversational patterns, your blind spots, the impact you have that you might not be aware of. This takes courage because the feedback might be uncomfortable, but it's invaluable for growth. The people around you are mirrors reflecting back aspects of your communication that you can't see from inside your own experience. Study great communicators. Watch how skilled interviewers guide conversations, how effective leaders inspire teams, how talented mediators resolve conflicts, how compelling storytellers captivate audiences. You can learn something from every one of them. What are they doing that creates the impact they have? What could you adapt for your own style? Practice in low-stakes situations. Every conversation with a barista, an Uber driver, a customer service representative, a family member is an opportunity to experiment. Try a new technique. Test a different approach. See what happens when you pause longer, when you validate explicitly, when you ask more open-ended questions, when you share a brief personal story. The more you practice, the more these skills become natural, integrated into who you are, rather than techniques you deploy. As you develop these capabilities, you'll notice something remarkable. Conversations that used to feel challenging become easier. Conflicts that would have escalated get resolved. Connections that would have stayed surface level go deep quickly. You'll find yourself consistently being sought out for important conversations because people sense that talking with you is different, that you listen in a way that makes them feel truly heard, that you respond in ways that move things forward rather than getting stuck. This is the promise of mastering emotional intelligence in conversation. Not that you'll win every argument or convince everyone of your position, but that you'll be able to navigate virtually any conversational situation with skill, grace, and effectiveness. You'll build deeper relationships, have greater influence, resolve conflicts more easily, and experience more genuine connection. You'll spend less time in frustrating circular conversations that go nowhere and more time in meaningful exchanges that actually matter. The person who develops this level of emotional intelligence doesn't just dominate conversations in the sense of controlling them. They dominate in the sense that they elevate every exchange, bringing out the best in others and consistently creating outcomes that serve everyone involved. They become the person others want to talk to, the one who makes hard conversations feel manageable, the one who can be trusted with complexity and emotion, the one who consistently adds value to every interaction. This is available to you,
not through manipulation or force, but through the patient, committed development of emotional awareness, regulation, social perception, and relationship skills. Every conversation you have from this moment forward is an opportunity to practice, to refine, and to grow. The question is whether you'll take that opportunity seriously, whether you'll commit to the practice of becoming more emotionally intelligent in how you communicate. Because once you do, once you truly commit to this path, the transformation in your relationships, your influence, and your impact will be profound and permanent.